It is one of the most densely populated regions in the world. It is also home to some of Europe's most popular holiday destinations. And it sits directly on top of one of the world's largest supervolcanoes. That's right. Beneath the Italian city of Naples lies a potentially super-explosive volcano that could destroy not just Italy, but much of Europe with it. How likely is an eruption, and what would happen if it did occur? Let's take a closer look at Naples' sleeping giant. Hello, and welcome to our channel. The reason why so many people live so close to the volcano is simple. It's because before it was a volcano, it was a lake. Tectonic plates are constantly shifting and moving, and around 40,000 years ago, this area was a large freshwater lake. Over time, the water levels dropped, leaving behind only the modern Lake Avernus. But the minerals left behind caused other geological activity in the region, eventually leading to the formation of Mount Vesuvius. As such, the volcano has been part of the landscape for thousands of years. However, in the early days of human civilization, it wasn't really noticed, or at least documented. It was during the time of the Roman Empire when people started talking about it. During the 79 AD eruption of Mount Vesuvius, the city of Pompeii was completely destroyed. In fact, it was this event that led to the word volcano even being used today. It comes from the Roman name for the volcano, which was given to it because it looked like a giant's overturned cauldron. In total, there have been over 100 eruptions of Mount Vesuvius over the past 4,000 years. So it's fair to say that people living in the shadow of the mountain have become accustomed to its rumblings. However, while most have been small, the damage they've done over the centuries should not be underestimated. In 1631, an eruption destroyed the city of Oplonti. Then, in 1707, it struck again, killing 26,000 people and destroying the town of Torre del Greco. These tragedies are why so many people still remember how dangerous Mount Vesuvius can be. But compared to other volcanoes, it's been relatively calm in recent history. So why is it still considered such a danger? Well, simply because it's sitting on a magma chamber that is 30 times larger than the one that blew up in 79 AD. There is enough magma here to fill up to 3 million cubic kilometers of space. That's 700 times more than the magma chamber that blew up at Krakatoa in 1883. Krakatoa's eruption is what we refer to as a supereruption. If Vesuvius were to do the same thing, then Europe would never be the same again. To understand what we mean by this, let's first look at a typical volcanic eruption. Magma builds up beneath the Earth's surface and eventually becomes too much for the crust to hold up. It pushes through weaknesses in the land, causing an eruption. When the magma reaches the surface, it's known as lava. However, not all eruptions are created equal. There are 7 different types. The first 4 are classified according to the Volcanic Explosivity Index, or VEI. This is a scale that measures how violent a volcanic eruption is based on 8 different characteristics. These include the height of the eruption column, the volume of material ejected, the frequency of explosions, and the duration of the eruption. The higher the number, the worse the eruption. For example, the 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora, which resulted in the year without a summer, had a VEI of 7. Meanwhile, the VEI of Vesuvius in 79 AD was a 5. There are 3 other types of volcanic eruptions which aren't measured in VEI. These include phreatic eruptions, which are caused by the buildup of pressure in steam and groundwater. Phreatomagmatic eruptions are caused by the interaction between lava and water. And finally, there are lava effusions, which are non-explosive eruptions of lava flows. We won't go into too much detail here, but suffice to say that the VEI scale doesn't always tell the whole story. Some eruptions may be highly explosive, but don't reach a VEI of 8. Others may seem small, but cause devastating damage. Take the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens in the US as an example. With a VEI of 5, it may not sound that bad, especially considering Vesuvius in 79 AD also had a VEI of 5. But Mount St. Helens unleashed more than 1.2 billion cubic meters of material. It completely obliterated everything in its path, so even a VEI of 5 can be disastrous. So what would happen if something similar were to happen to Naples? Now? Scientists measure the explosiveness of an eruption using something called the Volcanic Explosivity Index, or VEI. It ranges from 1 to 8, with 8 being the most powerful. To give you an idea of how big each level is, an eruption with a VEI of 4 sends ash and material 1 to 10 kilometers into the air. Meanwhile, a VEI of 7 eruption can send material 300 kilometers into the sky. If Mount Vesuvius erupted with the same force as its last major eruption, then it would be a VEI of 5. This would cause widespread devastation across Italy. Entire cities would be wiped off the map, including Naples itself. Ash would rain down over southern Italy, and parts of the Mediterranean would be covered in ash and pumice. Roads and infrastructure would be cut off, planes would be grounded, and crops would be destroyed. Italy would struggle to feed its own people, let alone those who may flee to neighboring countries. However, this isn't nearly as bad as it could get. If the massive magma chamber located beneath the city were to erupt, then we're talking about a true supereruption, which would blow away any remnants of life in the immediate vicinity. It would leave behind a caldera stretching from Naples all the way to the city of Caserta. Entire cities and towns would be flattened, but the effects wouldn't stop there. We'll tell you what happens next, right after. Much like the smaller VEI scale, there are several classifications for supereruptions. They're separated by how much ash and pumice is released into the atmosphere. If Mount Vesuvius were to have a VEI of 8, a eruption, then it would eject between 1,000 and 10,000 cubic kilometers of material. While this would cause serious damage to local areas, it wouldn't be considered a global catastrophe. However, if it were to have a VEI of 8b eruption, which ejects between 10,000 and 100,000 cubic kilometers of material, then things would start getting very bad indeed. Not only would much of Italy be devastated, but ash would begin falling over large parts of Europe. Global temperatures would begin dropping as the ash blocked out the sun. Crops would fail, and famine would sweep across the continent. A VEI 8c eruption would see the ejection of more than 1 million cubic kilometers of material. At this point, almost all of southern Europe would be covered in ash. The entire Mediterranean would be disrupted, and trade routes would collapse. Food shortages would lead to panic buying and the collapse of supply chains, and global temperatures could drop by as much as 2 degrees Celsius. The eruption of Mount Toba in Indonesia in 74,000 BC is believed to have been VEI 8c eruption. It caused an ice age that lasted for more than 1,000 years. Now, while a VEI 8 days eruption is considered a global catastrophe, it actually hasn't happened for millions of years. Even so, scientists have made estimates of what would happen if such an eruption were to occur. Large parts of the world would be rendered uninhabitable, whole ecosystems would collapse, and the world would enter another ice age. Humans would need to band together to survive. Mount Vesuvius is currently at a level 2 alert, which means minor activity has been detected. This includes small tremors and the release of gases. Level 3 means scientists have spotted clear signs of unrest, such as small earthquakes and changes in the patterns of local wildlife. Levels 4 and 5 indicate increasing unrest and impending eruptions. Should it reach level 5, tens of thousands of people would need to be evacuated. Most scientists agree that another eruption of the size seen in 79 AD or even 1631 is unlikely. However, it is impossible to predict what will happen with a supereruption. Because Mount Vesuvius is located so close to such a densely populated area, even a small eruption would cause untold devastation. It would make the 2010 Eyjafjallajökull eruption in Iceland look like child's play. But while we hope it stays quiet for many years to come, we should always remember that Mother Nature is unpredictable. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more videos.